What's going on, guys? Hey, listen, from the house of day 3, guys, we have a real treat. New fragrance from the house of day 3 and a new intro. Strap up.
Okay, dinner for two. I watch that head move side to side as I let this in into the room. You were on time, let's connect minds. Trying to get into a mood. We gon' be fine. Close up the blinds, no rush. Finish the food.
All right, welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am y'all's host for the night. From the house of day 3, we have Trace Oros. Now, this is the latest release from the house, and since I picked up a discovery set, we will be walking through the entire house. Now, fun fact, both the perfumer and his wife, I don't know if they collab. I'm sure they clearly work together, but who's doing what, I'm not sure. But those folks live down the street from me, literally like 5 minutes away. And I'm excited to investigate this house because it's local and because they make some very compelling fragrances. Which reminds me, let me turn my stream deck on. Cool. We got it? All right. So yeah, they live close to me, and in the future, I can't say too much, but I'm gonna be investigating them even beyond the fragrances. So for those of you who don't know about Day 3 fragrances, I'm just gonna read you their little quick bio here. It says, "We are not a mass market company. We craft our perfumes by hand in small batches with an unrelenting eye and nose towards detail. Every bottle is created individually, labeled and shipped by one of our family members. Your purchase from Day 3 is special, your very own piece of olfactive art, and I personally hope you love it as much as we loved making it for you." And below, they've shown the awards they've received in 2023 and 2024, some notable awards. Now, Trace Oros is their latest release, and it is supposed to be reminiscent, I believe, of a Dominican dessert, I believe. I hope I'm right. Yeah, Dominican. And so I'm just going to do an initial impressions real quick. We've loaded up the test strip. I've got it on my arm, and I could say it does smell desserty in the freshest way possible. I love when a fragrance has the ability to be both dense yet incredibly light. It's almost as if the fragrance floats off of your skin while still asserting itself in a way that doesn't feel diluted. And so that's really a real accomplishment to me, because a lot of times with gourmand-esque fragrances or dense fragrances, you really feel the weight of them. It's almost like the fragrance is wearing you in a lot of ways. And in some DNAs, it makes sense to do that. But in this one, the fragrance is using such a dense amount of accords and notes and materials that I really feel the lift of lightness that this fragrance provides is really signature and to be expected of high craftsmanship with this particular note pairing. I get a lot of stuff with this fragrance, guys. Mainly, I get cinnamon and honey. This feels in the family of angel share. It also feels in the family of another fragrance they make called Philosophia, but it's angel share-esque with a couple of nuances. So it doesn't have the praline or the cognac and things like that, but it definitely has the cinnamon. I feel the vanilla, almost has like a caramelness, but I know that that's from a dense amount of honey. So yeah, I get this blast of honey and cinnamon, but there's some fresher, lighter elements. I think the star note that they mention in this fragrance is plantain. And let me just say this before we get into any details and we look at the pyramid. This is a fragrance that's so dense in honey and cinnamon that I truly feel like you have to wear this fragrance twice to appreciate it, because it's almost like you need to coat your nostrils with the brown sugar, the honey, the cinnamon, to the point where it's so familiar to your nose that the second wearing really unveils the other elements of the fragrance. Which I'll talk about what those notes are in a second. But yeah, so my recommendation is obviously that you decant this fragrance first, but as you're wearing it, wear it once and then wear it a second time, and you'll find that more of the secondary notes, which feel very 60-40 or even 70-30, that 30-40% really starts to creep forward, and your nose goes past the familiar and on to the different aspect of the fragrance. Now, with that being said, let's switch windows here and look at the note breakdown. Up top, we have pineapple and mandarin, and I can tell you that these notes are extremely subtle. Heart notes, though, we have plantain and cinnamon. The cinnamon is heavy and maintains throughout the fragrance with its combo note of brown sugar. It's a very brown, sugary cinnamon. The plantain is way more lively than the pineapple and mandarin. However, again, you don't really pick up the plantain as much in the first wearing as you do the second wearing, is really where the nuance of the fragrance really starts to jump those background notes out in a way that truly makes it different from something like an Angel Share. Base notes, we have brown sugar, amber, and honey. So you're probably very familiar with the kind of cinnamon, amber, honey combo. Even brown sugar is pretty much similar palette as those three. But really, the question becomes, how much of that plantain, pineapple, and mandarin do you get? Now, again, I can say that the pineapple and mandarin is very shy in this fragrance, but what it ultimately does is the pineapple and mandarin lift up the plantain that you really truly don't start to make out until the second wearing, where you're already familiar with the density of this fragrance. I don't think it's quite entry-level gourmand. I actually think it's maybe step 2 into gourmand, like level 2, because it is very desserty. But because it's so similar to Angel Share, I really classify Angel Share as entry-level gourmand. I think this takes it just a tiny step more forward due to the plantain and the fruits. But with that being said, this is a very good fragrance. I'm calling it off the bat like a 9. The craftsmanship is spectacular. The projection is easily 6 feet. The sillage is probably 4 to 6 feet. And the only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because of the familiarity of it. I really would have liked to see the plantain lifted even more off of the honey and cinnamon and brown sugar accords, because then I think you truly, it's the distinguishing and unique factor to this DNA that no one is really introduced, this plantain. And even to some extent, the pineapple and mandarin. Had those notes been amped up even an extra 10% in this fragrance, and now you start to really, really, really hammer a non-discrete, just projective, pronounced signature to this DNA style that we're very familiar with. Angel Share is not the only fragrance that has cinnamon, brown sugar, honey elements to it, right? Like, I think of fragrances like Le Male Elixir. I think of fragrances like Angel Share. I think of fragrances like honey. I believe there's a Georgia fragrance that goes in that direction. Wajan from Parfums de Marly even hunts down this trajectory. And so, again, I think this is in some ways a safe attempt to preserve a very familiar style of DNA and just give it a slight nuance. And I would have liked to see them go all in. But nonetheless, it's well above average, and it gets credit for the nuance of plantain, pineapple, and mandarin to this style DNA. And it's very well done. So for me, it's a 9. So now, unisex fragrance for sure. I always said that with a DNA like Angel Share, what really gives it some cojones is the cognac. The cognac is what makes it safely unisex and still feel masculine, that kind of dark liquor note. And in this fragrance, there is nothing that truly masculinizes the fragrance. However, because it's more neutral desserty, I don't think that it leans super feminine in the same way that Angel Share could have. because there's a little bit more drive to it, clearly being gourmandish with the plantain and the fruits and everything. There's nothing like a floral or something that might kind of deviate it and make it feel. Now, some of you might think it's still somewhat feminine leaning just because, honey, brown sugar, it's just overly sweet. But I do think the plantain, mandarin, and pineapple give it a fresh lift that makes it float on the skin rather than be a cakey density that a lot of kind of feminine fragrances are known for in the sweet category. So that's one thing to be said. I still think, though it doesn't have cognac, I would personally be interested in providing those nuances with this fragrance via combos. I want to see it with a rum. I want to see it with a cognac. I want to see the plantain ramped up, or maybe the pineapple or mandarin ramped up, to just kind of play with the different variations. Even something like incense and tobacco, what happens when that gets introduced? So I have a lot of comboing ideas in my mind, but nonetheless, as a standalone fragrance, this feels like a very projective, nice, unique dessert type of fragrance that I think the more you wear it, the more the background kind of tries to make an attempt at being a foreground, which is really, to me, the most interesting parts of this fragrance, because cinnamon, brown sugar, and honey are just very familiar to me. Nonetheless, the raw materials are very high grade here. I don't get any sense of artificial sweetener in here. Everything feels natural. The honey, the brown sugar, and cinnamon, as pungent as they are, it feels very robustly photoreal to my nose. I don't get a sense of any level of synthetics. Now, niche fragrances do use synthetics a lot of the time. You have to. You can only go so far with certain raw materials when cost comes into play and various things like that. So I'm not excusing, because I'm not a scientist, I'm not or a perfumer, I'm not excusing that there may or may not be synthetics used, but as far as how it projects on skin, I don't get the sense of any fakery or cheapery going on here. Again, I give it a 9 out of 10. It's a very nice addition. I don't want to speak to comparatively which one I prefer between this and Philosophia, even though they feel close. I want to leave that for a separate review and come back to it. So I can't speak to redundancy in getting this over Philosophia or anything like that. Philosophia is just another one of their fragrances. But nonetheless, this is a great fragrance. Cold weather leaning, I think below the 70 degrees-ish, 75 degrees-ish area, or like downwind. Nightlife, it's playful, it's a bit seductive. I think this can go anywhere from casual to semi-formal. The sweet spot, I think, is like an upscale casual. Occasions, I mean, there's a lot of different things, movie theater, ballroom, concert, beautiful restaurant, walking by the beach, nightlife on the water, hotel. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can go with. It's playful, it's romantic, it's gourmand. So you could really push it into a lot of different categories. For me, 4 to 6 sprays is plenty. Absolutely plenty. 4 to 6 sprays should easily get you 6 to 8 hours of performance. I'd imagine with this fragrance, you get about an hour to an hour and a half per spray on the performance side. It's a nice dense fragrance in that regard. So you don't really have to overkill on the trigger finger here. And then you can also scale down if you begin to combo with various things, incense, more plantain, tobacco, just anything you could mix with this would go. There's a lot of different plays you can do with this, cognacs, rums, that would, I think, complement this fragrance very well. Yeah. Put your nose to this fragrance before you pull the trigger on it. What's beautiful about day 3 is when you purchase the Discovery set, which I believe used to be about $30 to $35, it's now $40. However, when you buy the Discovery set, you get 2 mLs with atomizers of everything from the set, including the newest Trace Oros. But for getting the Discovery set, you get a $40 voucher now that you could put towards an actual bottle. So basically, for getting the Discovery set, it's almost the same thing as if you bought a fragrance, you get a free Discovery set. It's just in reverse. You get the Discovery set first, you figure out what you like, and now you have $40 off of the fragrance when you move up to the 100 ml bottle, which I think That's what they sell as 100 mLs, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, this is a great fragrance. Like, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell. We drop episodes every single day of the week, and I have been doing that for 8 months consistently, if not more. So with that being said, this is Trace Oros from day 3, and it's a unisex fragrance, and it is a banger. All right, so this is the scent bubble. I hope you guys have a blessed week. If you have any questions about this fragrance, definitely sound off in the comments. I'd be happy to respond. I respond quickly. I'm active. Y'all know I'm out here in these fragrance streets. So with that being said, y'all take care. Peace.